Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to do some problem diagnosis. I don't think we'll be able to do the repair, but this is another reel that Desante sent in. It's a beautiful reel. It's a Penn Torque Bail. It's the Torque TRQ5S. And, well, the note says it's getting stuck along the way. You didn't include the handle, but if I spin this, right there, right, it seems like the top of the stroke, it gets stuck and then it comes down again. Well, usually that means that there's something going on in the oscillation system that's not clearing the top of the stroke. But to do our analysis, one of the first things we want to do is take off the spool and see if it still happens with the spool removed. But while I'm doing that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting, what I'm posting, and well, you can see if that's something that interests you in the art of reel repair or understanding how fishing reels are made or the fishing industry in general. I do try to cover a lot of topics: freshwater, saltwater, low-profile bait casters, saltwater surf reels, trolling reels, and everything. So there's usually something that will show up there, and I would encourage you to subscribe. All right, we're going to take the moment now, spin it without the bail. And there you go. When you get to the top of the stroke, it's still sticking. So that leads me to say something inside the reel is going to miss. Well, we're going to take the rotor off here just to get it out of the way. Then we'll open up the case and we'll see what's going on inside. To remove the rotor, you want to pull the two screws that are holding the little nut cap on. I'll just leave them on my desk for a moment, but when you're doing reel repair, you want to make sure that you have a system of organization for the pieces and parts that you remove. I use a parts tray. It's the bottom of a fast food container. I have several of them stacked, and that way, well, I know where they are when I take them off. More importantly, I know where they are when it's time to put them back together again. Once I take that off, I'm going to try and find a deep socket that matches the size of the nut for the rotor. And if you bear with me a moment, we'll see if we can't find that one. Well, there you go. We found that one. It's a 14mm nut. I keep my ratchets in a little tub close by. Now we'll see if we can't take that off. I just use the ratchet to break the initial hold on the nut, and then I walk it out by hand. That kind of eliminates the risk of any kind of issues you may have with the removal of pieces and parts. Okay, the rotor is off. There's a little collar that goes around here. There's something of a kind of a worn or rusty nature or dirt inside here. This has a little clip that Penn uses. And again, to do this right, if you turn it, I'm turning just by using the pinion gear now. Well, same thing happens, I'm stuck up top. All right. We're going to go over now and remove the side plate and see what's sticking. So there's 4 screws here. They happen to be Torx screws. This is a T15. It's easy enough to say that they are over-torquing. They're Torx screws. So we're going to have to go to a plan B here. Over-torquing Torx screws on a Torque reel. Somebody had a sense of humor. Okay, so I switched over to one of my palm drivers that I have, and let's take this thing off, see what we can see. There's 2 sides actually to this case, much like the old Mitchell 302s. And let's see where it's hanging. You're never quite certain on these. One of the things you might want to do, I've done it, I don't have it here, but you might want to go to the Mystic Parts site, get the schematic for the reel, and take a look to see what's inside the reel. It looked very calm and plain inside, so I'm expecting just to see a crosswind lever and gear, and well, we'll see. All right, the 4 screws are out. Let's try and remove this side. This should be a pretty tight seal here. That's one of the things that they've kind of championed themselves on there. Okay, the seal is out. I'm going to take these 4 and put these in this case. And remember, I have this stuck up top now, so I should be able to see what an issue may be. So those will go into one case. We'll take the other side off now. And that's where you need to remember that the case with the button, not the handle side, is on the right. So much of these issues, just it's kind of process of elimination. You got to look at what you got or don't have, and make your judgments from that in terms of what could or couldn't be wrong. This reel is not an inexpensive reel. I think this thing, I don't know if they're making them anymore, but I think at the time they were probably $500 reels. So, and I'm not sure if I have to, okay, that should come off. Famous last words. Okay, well, instead of wrestling with the other side plate, let's take it off this way. I'm going to take those 4 screws, put them over to the side. There's likely a jammed bearing in there. Let's remove the axle shaft, and I'm seeing the problem right here. I don't know what this is, but it doesn't belong there, I'm sure of that. So nothing should be floating on the axle shaft there. It may be a broken bearing or something else. This reel is very noisy, so it's quite possible that a bearing broke and the inner race is laying there. Or it could be something else, you never know. I'm going to grab the knob from the spool, tighten that down, use that as a lever to pull out on that axle shaft. Alright, this part I would expect to see. This is the little ferrule that they put inside the pinion gear. That's okay. Let's see if we can pull this main gear out this way now. Okay, I'm just going to try and keep, there we go. Oh well, I think we've got a broken bearing here. Here's a race, we saw that on the bottom. Here's probably the inner piece. Let's take the crosswind block out. You want to inspect this for damage, because if the bearing broke and got in there, there'd be some issues going on. Okay, so here's what's happened here. That block is traveling up and down on this oscillation gear. So it's running like that. Then we have this piece on the bottom of the axle shaft that was actually running into the piece back here on the main gear. You can see how the travel stops here, but with that part on the axle, it was running into your main gear and causing that to be a problem. Well, I'm going to go to the, oh, the plate is off too, good. Going to go, this is where it's missing from, appears to be. Looks like we have a full bearing in there with half of it still stuck in there. And we'll, yeah, there's your race. So I have no idea where those bearings are, but that's probably one of the reasons why we have the noise that we're having in the performance as well. It's hard to see. Let's see if I can bring that up. Right here you can see the gap. That's the outer ring of the bearing right there. And what we'll do is we'll take the inner workings out of this. We're going to inspect it, make sure that there's nothing else wrong with it. This has got a snap ring in it. I should have a mini snap plier around here somewhere. These snap ring pliers are generally available, relatively inexpensive. I think I got this set possibly at Harbor Freight. I just switched to one that has an angular versus the flat face. I think I have this set now. And that's how you remove that split ring that goes inside. And then we should be able to pull up and out on this. And this is where I'm seeing that rust. Which is probably another reason why we have a noisy bearing there. Okay. Just like we did with the other one, you want to take your rotor cup now and put that back on. To use that as a leveraged handle. Let's see if we can't rock it out that way. I'm just taking a moment to clean off some of the stuff on my desk. When you start pulling these things, hands and things can knock and the like, so I just paused for a moment there. So let's just continue then. Wow. There we go. All right. This has got a unique pinion gear to it in that the pinion gear also holds the inner ring. Oh boy, look at that rust. Yeah, it's a noisy bearing on a bearing that should be sealed. Wow. Yeah, that's going to have to get replaced. The pinion gear has a piece that's forged on there that's the inner race for that anti-reverse clutch. That's the one we're seeing all the rust on. Clean it out. This is appears to be rusted in place, the pinion gear. That makes sense. It only has a kind of a little metal jacket on it. Not quite sure what that jacket is made out of, but it certainly didn't. Wow, it's just completely rusted. And it looks like there's a good amount of rust on the roller bearings as well. Let's first of all make sure that that clutch is running. As I mentioned, it's kind of odd. It's not pressed into the case, but it works that way. I guess it's like everything else on this reel. Okay, the clutch is holding. Ideally, what I think you would want to do is to replace that clutch, but it's really rusted in there. Let's take a look from the bottom. Oh, there's no easy access. There's no lip that's holding that you can grab here to kind of push that clutch out. We've got decision time here. I think you run a risk if you try to remove that you may fracture the case. You could attempt to drill that out and pull out the pieces like a dentist would do on a cavity in a tooth or something. I guess that's an option. I'm going to have to get back to the owner and ask the owner what they would prefer to do. It probably is okay to leave it go and address it later if that clutch fails, but for right now, it seems like that clutch is holding. So I think what the best course of action may be is just let that go and deal with it another time if that indeed does fail in the future. But right now, we see that the issue is this one bearing, rust in the case, and there was a broken bearing below. And that's this piece here. This is the inner race of the piece. Kind of goes like that on the end of it. We saw the other piece come out. If I can find out where I just put that now. And more importantly, I still haven't seen the ball bearings. So they're stuck in here somewhere. So I'm going to have, there's one. And they're really small, tiny ball bearings. They're out there. They're in here. So one of the things I'll probably do is take a moment and put this into a ultrasonic bath and try to make sure that all of those little bearings get shaken free. I think this is one here. Looks like one, possibly. So they're hiding in here somewhere, but they are in the reel. That is a concern at this point. Okay, so why did the reel fail? What happened was the lower bearing on this pinion gear broke. The bearing was actually housed on this side of the reel. You can see the smaller dimension, but as this bearing goes through, there's a bearing that sits here, and that bearing broke. And when that bearing broke, it threw out all its bearings. That didn't cause the failure, but the jacket, the piece here and below, fell onto the axle. And when we came up top, like I showed before, that piece got trapped behind the main gear on that little stud that drives the oscillation gear. That's why it was performing poorly at best, right? But one of the things I'm noticing here is we got that same issue with the bearing here, and I didn't check the bearing in the other case. I'm going to recommend, I think I'm going to insist, yeah, that's noisy too. There's so much noise going on in this reel. Replace the 3 of these main bearings. Replace the bearing on the bottom of the pinion gear. Absolutely got to do that one and this one. And probably let that sleeping dog lie. It's working. And try to do the best that I can with maybe rubbing alcohol or something to clean up whatever I can of the rust on the rollers. And just kind of fingers crossed that it holds. So, wow. So you got a $500 reel that failed, like NASA used to say. The whole mission kind of failed because of a $19 part. But yep, that's what happened here. And stay tuned. We'll see if we can't get the rest of this cleaned up. Get the replacement parts. Find out where those little bearings are hiding that came out of the broken one. And put it back together again. Get it to Asante to take fishing. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Not all of these wind up with a second chance right away, but I'm sure that this one will get a second chance. We will be able to service the reel. There's a bearing right there. All right, well, we found one of them. That's what we're looking for, probably about 15 or 20 of those. That's right on the tip of my finger there. We found one, and now it concerns me that they're laying on the desk. I'm going to have to make sure that they don't get in other projects as well. All right, this is as far as I can take it, and we'll go find out what direction Asante wants to take on the replacement parts. If he wants to grapple with that clutch replacement, I'll let it go at the moment. And then we'll get the parts, rebuild it, and make it whole again. I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do to keep us safe. I truly do appreciate your efforts day in and day out, and I make it a point to try and recognize you for that. To everyone, sometimes the best lessons learned are from failures. This reel failed. We learned a little bit about what makes the reel go, and well, what made it stop. So that'll go cataloged into our memory banks for future projects, and maybe the next time we won't have to go so far in the analytics before we say, I know what it is, it's a broken bearing. All right, hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay fishing, and have a good time with reel repair. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.